All right. Welcome in, everybody. I'm so glad that you are here for the kickoff of 2026 HR Lunch Bunch. We are transforming HR. Well, I don't know that we are, but maybe you will be, because this conversation is all about what's next in HR, or at least from the research that I've been doing, and probably you've been getting some of those emails too about what's going on, what's next. Is it a trend? Is it something else? And so I'd like to see what's happening in your neck of the world. I'd like to be able to have you weigh in. For those of you who I have not met before, my name is Deborah Jeffries and I serve as the vice president at HR Answers. And if I can figure out why I'm not advancing the slides, then that'll be even better. So if you've not met me before, this is my contact information. You should feel free to reach out. I work here at HR Answers and have for over 30 years. And this is a little pet project that started with one of our staff members many, many years ago. And I picked it up when they departed and said, we can't let it stop. And it really started out as a brown bag lunch discussion. And when the pandemic hit, we went virtual. So now we have people all over the state and out of state that will join us for this conversation. And that's the key word. It really is intended to be a conversation. So being able to have a discussion about a particular topic uh, of my choosing, your suggestions, please, I ask that you recommend to me things that are struggle points, things you want to learn more about, things you want to hear from others, so that we can discuss, talk about what's going on, what's working, what's not working, um, what is happening in your world, how HR is happening, not happening, being turned on its head. This is an opportunity to network in a little different way than some of you who are SHRM members and you're going to chapter meetings and activities. But truly, I encourage you to have your cameras on, unmute yourself, and be able to talk with each other. Again, I have the chat box open as an opportunity, as a form of communication. But this really is an opportunity for us to chat and share and network and learn from each other. Yes, I have a slideshow. Or slide deck. I've put it together for you. I will share it for those of you who attend live and in person post program so that you have it. But really, this is an opportunity for us to say, okay, what's going on? How can we take information? How can we share it with each other in some fashion or another? Because I really would like to um, learn from you as much as share things that I have found along the way. And first and foremost, I thought maybe we take just a quick, teeny little um, peek at just a couple of items that happened in 2025, because maybe there's something to reflect back on here. So, again, the arrow needs to work. There we go. Um, Now, I don't know how many of you are doing this, but if you're not providing some kind of financial wellness, education to your employees, it really did hit kind of a little bit of a fever pitch for many of us in 2025 through our EAPs about financial wellness, really leading to a good indicator of mental health and productivity. And I'm going to suggest keep doing that. Do more of that. Provide opportunities for your employees. Um, Beyond that, even AI, it was here, it is here, it's going to keep being here. And it moved beyond the hype and definitely became more of a strategic kind of piece for many of us in a variety of ways. I'm sure you're using it. Many people have been concerned about is it going to replace employees? More jobs are being created around it. There's been that whole conversation about the super worker and that concept being defined, and how it's bringing value and productivity to our jobs. DEI took a big hit, the polarization of that. But some of the research suggests, and especially from one survey house, saying that 57% of organizations and the chief diversity officers, their budgets remained unchanged, and several of them, 29%, actually increased. Several organizations decided to change the vocabulary. So, yes, it's gotten some mega media attention. I'd be interested in you putting a note in the chat box about whether or not that's impacting you, how you're dealing with that in your workplaces. Did you give DEI a new name? Did you change some of your initiatives? What are you doing in regards to that? Or how has it impacted your employees in that regards? And then from an HR standpoint, people analytics, data, benchmarking, all those kinds of things, predicting our outcomes, our future. What does that look like? From technology to cultural readiness, how are you accessing it and interpreting it and being able to act on it effectively? Because I think that we can be overwhelmed with all the data. And so while I think 2025 said, yes, we can get it, yes, we have it, are we using it? And are we using it well? Because I think we have to be able to navigate all of that data to be as savvy as we need to be. But there's a lot of pressure. And for some of us, we have great HRIS systems. We have great partners to help in that regards. And many of us, we're a department of one, and we're lucky just to get through the day, let alone all of that stuff. So that's a little bit, just a teeny little snapshot about 2025. And I thought I would just give anybody who would like to opportunity to comment, make an observation or two, spill your guts about how overwhelming all that was just in itself.
Deborah,
Yeah.
Shauna, I'm just curious if you could dive into a little bit more. It says the technology exists, but cultural readiness still appears to lag. Can you help me out with what cultural readiness is
So
referring to?
yeah, so I think that one of the things is that from a cultural standpoint, when it comes to some of the technology that's out there, that's available to us, are we embracing it? You'll even see that in 2026. How are we doing with that? Some organizations are early adopters. Some are whatever's next, they're taking it on, and employees can't even keep up with the CEO who wants to take on the next something, 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 right? Um, some people are embracing the newest technology, some departments, not everybody, some employees, some don't like the change. How are we utilizing that? How are we adapting to that? Are we even adapting to that? Because it's moving at such a fast pace, right? Some people are struggling just in the fact that I need to update my laptop every 18 months, let alone the cell phone and all the apps and all the features. When we meet with the HRIS, your payroll system, any of your programming that you have just to do your jobs, all the new features, all the training that then has to go along with that. I think that there's lots of opportunities, more than enough, but are we culturally ready? Are our people embracing that? Is there some resistance to some of that? So I think that part of that is what do you really need? What do you want to use? What's effective for you to be using? And is there places where there are, in my body of work, there are plenty of places where organizations that we work with, they aren't using the latest and greatest. They are definitely behind. And I'm not talking about a couple of years. When we get clients that are, the handbook hasn't been updated in 10 years. Well, chances are good other things haven't been updated either. Now, from an efficiency standpoint, that can be kind of concerning. When you're hiring people, I've got a client right now. They are, phone systems are behind, computer systems are behind, payroll systems are behind, all kinds of electronic, systematic kinds of things are behind. So when they're hiring, the people who they are potentially hiring are expecting different things to be in place. tools to be available for them to do work. And then they are surprised when they get in and are going through onboarding, those tools aren't available. Then retention becomes a bit of a concern. I think that's some of what I'm thinking some of this means and looks like and what I'm equating to it. Now, I welcome other people's observations as well. Well, at least Tiffany and I are on the same page. Anybody else? Okay. So a couple people are saying yes. Okay. So with that said, to kind of jump us into 2026, one of the things that I think might be kind of important is just thinking about from your organizational standpoint, what's a trend versus what's a priority? And the only reason I put this in there, because the last time I did something like this, I actually didn't do it in 2025, but I did do it in 2024. And I didn't put something like this in there. There's lots of trends. In fact, actually, truth be told, at the very end of this, I put something completely not HR related in, just to have a little fun. I mean, how many of you are on Pinterest? Does anybody follow or do anything with Pinterest? Now, it was not my intention. Good for you, Sarah. So I actually put a slide on what Pinterest said is coming our way. So, with that said, one of the things that I'm thoughtful of, oh, and you know what? I just had an aha moment. Now I know why I'm duplicating because you guys used my login. Okay, now I get it. I feel better now because I'm like, so when I need a craft idea, yes, that's true for me, but I'm not typing that in. Okay. So those Deborahs that are out there, you guys will need to, you'll need to let me know who you really are so that I know who actually showed up today. Okay, I sometimes I can be a little slow on the uptake. Thank you, Stephanie. You know what? For all my years of experience and all my, sometimes I'm with it, sometimes I'm just not. So, thank you for that. So, at the very end of this, I have a note about what Pinterest thinks are trends for 2026. And maybe we can incorporate them into HR. I don't know. I'm just saying. But I thought, you know what? I got an email. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there just for fun. I've never ever done that before. So it's a first for all of us. So when we talk about trends, sustained patterns of behavior, well, is that really a trend if it's sustained patterns of behavior? Wouldn't we equate that to employees, to our culture inside the organization? Technology innovation, market condition, environmental factors. What's going on in our world? What's going on in your industry, right? Now let's couple any of that when it comes to priorities within your organization. Where are you at? Where do you want to be? The organization that I'm visiting today, one of their biggest challenges is product is not getting to them in the timeline agreed by contracts, in the timeline that then they talk to somebody on the phone and they're verbally promised for a variety of reasons. Market conditions, governmental considerations, Mother Nature, and then add in a few others. So then they can't get what they need to create the products that they need for their clients. And the cycle goes on. So now let's talk about priorities, your key initiatives, things that are going on that you need to have happen. So when thinking about any of these things that I'm going to share with you, these are what timeless people in terms of research. And at the very end of the materials, I've given you a list of where all of these things came from so that you know that I wasn't just pulling these out of my magic hat or looking at my magic 8 ball or something along those lines. All of which I have, even a crystal ball, all reside in my office. All right. So we talk a lot about HR and strategy. It's not a support role, and it hasn't been for quite some time. However, learning teams and being asked to play by critical roles and upskilling and reskilling is becoming even more foundational than it was several years ago when I was talking about this topic. And AI is a complementary skill set to all of this. Now, what I want to ask you though is where do you currently feel HR is being most strategic and where's the most strategic influence in your organization? Sometimes it's still depending on our owners, the structure, it can be administrative, it can be kind of reactive, but I'd like to hear from you all. What's kind of the most strategic influence going on inside your organization right now? And again, you can unmute,
I'll jump in.
please.
Yeah. So I'm newly hired at a company, but the first thing that they really want HR to help drive change and and focus possibly on organizational strategy is changing the culture where managers are more confident about holding their employees accountable and how to have those kind of conversations. And so that's where they want to build in how do we make that a permanent part of like becoming a manager and building stronger teams around that and getting comfortable with feedback.
Mm,
So that was interesting.
getting comfortable with feedback. Absolutely. Well, and later in slides, I have just the whole leadership element. And are we spending time developing our leaders, training our leaders in all the things that we need, handling change, managing change, adaptability? All of those things are vital. So, yeah, absolutely. Good. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Someone else besides Shannon want to share or have an observation? I also see that Shauna said compliance in terms of being more strategic.
I'll share. This is Stephanie, by the
Thank
way.
you. I was gonna say, you can rename yourself, Stephanie, once
I
you're into Zoom.
I know I tried to figure that out. I couldn't find the three dots that she
Oh,
meant.
okay. Okay.
Um, but part of our strategic plan, um, I'm in charge of like the wellness and figuring out how the employees want to see a wellness be encouraged in the department. And so I recently took or presented a wellness study to our volunteers and to our admin and to our career staff, and not only just touched on like emotional wellness, but it was like physical wellness and financial wellness and occupational wellness and social wellness and intellectual wellness, spiritual wellness. So it just kind of touched on a lot of different aspects that people don't really think about when they think about wellness. But they took a confidential quiz test and so I'll be looking at those results and presenting it to them and trying to find out more what the agency can do for them to encourage or help them benefit from a better wellness environment.
Love it. Love it. Good. Good. And that's taking in the total employee, right? So not just they come to work and do work, but what what motivates them? How do we get them coming? How do we take care of them? And checking in with them as a whole person.
Correct. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, and we also have in the chat leading change management across the organization. Having teams successfully adopt and sustain the operation and systems change. Delivering training that standardize the organization's critical functions. Yes. And there will even be a slide about training from a how do we go from starting in the quote classroom to making it practical, memorable, memorable, uh, making sure that it it stays sticky for people. And getting a lot of the what's is not enough. How's, practice time makes a difference, makes a difference. So, I've referenced already a couple times AI. One of the areas that I grabbed information was Udemy. I don't know if I always say that right. So when we think about it's not just a technical goal, it's really becoming kind of our operational system. In the early days, it was maybe scary for people. It's going to take jobs. Then it was about we've got to have a policy around it. Then it was going to be how are we going to use it? So then it's about do people know how to use it? Then it was we got to tell people we are using it, right? So how is HR using it? From a Can it help us be more effective and efficient? Is it helping us with data? So how is your organization utilizing AI? Is it a tool? Is it a capability? Is it part of the culture? Is AI readiness where you work? What is that? What does that look like in your organization? Is it something we're still scared about?
So I'll say I use it as a tool. It helps me like with writing letters and things like that that typically would take me, I guess, maybe an hour to just to make sure the wording's right, that I've covered everything. I can now like just type it in AI and say, write me a letter that says this, and make it a little empathetic, and it spits it out, and I'm like, perfect. So, you know. So I use it that way. And also like with performance feedback too, because and with my manager, sometimes they word it a little direct or a little harsh. And so I'll copy and paste it in AI and say, make this sound a little more coaching or, and it'll spit it back out. I send that to the manager and say, use this instead. So
Might I suggest a more coaching tone,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Brenda, do I see your hand up? And
You,
is it Tara or Tara?
It's Tara, but I
Tara.
go by either.
I just want to make sure. So Tara,
Okay.
thanks for weighing in. Hey, Brenda, what say you?
yes, like Tara, I'm the district manager here, and I feel like I have my own little private assistant, can do everything at the whim. So quick, I don't have my finger away from the keyboard sometime, and it's already done. So yeah, knowing what questions, how to control it in your workflow is something we're struggling with a little bit. And I think we want to develop a policy about what the expectations are and other things. Like if your job is a creative job, are you using AI to do all the creative stuff? Are you taking credit for AI? So having policy that makes sure that you're crediting where you get stuff is, I think, our biggest, challenge and what we'd like to see done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think depending on the kind of organization you are in terms of like creating things or not. So yeah, when I first started using AI, I was like, okay, hit the button, I'll go to the restroom. And I was like, wait, you're already done? I didn't even have a time to get up and go and do something. So, but I think seeing things in the chat in terms of wordsmithing, absolutely. And sometimes, to Tara's point, I've written things just as I'm feeling. Rah, 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 rah. And then I say, can you please say this in a tone that doesn't sound so defensive or angry? And and it helps because then I can get my stuff out, but nobody else knows that I'm feeling that way necessarily. But I also think depending on your organization or access to the internet, that's also then tools we can help our managers with in terms of this is what I want to use or how I want to use it for those coaching conversations, because then we can enable them to use it as the editor, right? Help them use the tool and it's not necessarily coming through us. So I think that that's something that can help. And to Jackie's point, to spell check, to wordsmith, to aid us in even other ideas, I've used it with training programs. Here's the things that I already have as samples. Can you provide me with other samples? Or in my case, because I work with so many different industries, industry specific examples, right? Give us more, or to change up what you've already created to give more examples so you're expanding your offering to your employees in some fashion, right? Analyzing results, exactly. Wonderful. First draft of employees write up, investigative notes, giving giving AI, talking about investigative notes. So you've interviewed 6 people. Find all the commonalities, find the redundancies of the statements or observations so you aren't having to try and pick it all out. It can pull all that stuff together for you. So there's so many wonderful uses of it. So when we think about, kind of shifting our thought processes of how we use AI, same in terms of shifting how we are learning things. Not sure how much time, money, energy you are spending in terms of employee development. I will say that something that I've shared for probably the last 2 years or thereabouts, when we hire people, we're not getting everything we want and need. It's not possible. And part of that also is people's knowledge base and skill base. So a lot of managers and supervisors are simply going to have to do more on the job training. It just is. Well, that also means maybe more training in general. Maybe our training departments or having a trainer for some of our internal systems. What does that look like? So if more managers and supervisors are having to do that, that's going to take them away from maybe doing some other things or balancing the load. Well, how do people learn? How do they learn best? We need to know that. We need to be more versed in learning styles, understanding them. But in addition to that, what is our how are we currently uh, presenting information? How is our trainers doing things? How are our leaders presenting information or training their employees and understanding? Not everybody learns the same way. So when we think about more hands-on, more continuous, making things more a routine as part of our process. So whether it's quarterly, annually, whether there's an element also of just in time, those small micro learnings, getting things more from mentors or peers, getting ongoing feedback in some fashion. What is it that's more customized and personalized to your organization? I do a lot of training that's generic and people come, but then they say, come on site so that we can customize it to our environment, to our people, so that the language matches up or the scenarios are in alignment. So when we think about employee development and upskilling or reskilling, the fact that we have people who are in the workplace longer, they need to practice these things. You need scenarios to walk through, whether it's scenario planning or just practicing how to give feedback because it's on paper. Sounds good, looks good, up on the big screen. But the answer is they haven't actually practiced having those more challenging conversations. So guess what? They actually don't know how to have it at the time they need to. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to fumble. Stuff happens. But so, how is learning happening in your organization? Is it more event based, continuous? What are you putting together? What's what does it look like at your location? Does silence mean you're typing? Does silence mean You're not doing very much of it?
Well, just
Well, I
kind of
take,
thinking
oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's fine. So how's learning currently happening in our organization? There's so many different ways. It depends on the position, what the training topic is, but I mean, we do a lot of hands-on, we do a lot of classroom, webinars. We have some training databases that we use that for some safety stuff and skills-based training. So right now we utilize like every form of training there is, but still searching, I guess, really for like a final training plan.
Well, and final being relative in terms of, because it's constantly changing. I like the fact that Geneva is saying LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is constantly adding things, right? More, a little bit more digestible at times. Franklin Covey, solid firm organization, very structured in terms of what it puts together for people. There are so many things that are online, the TED Talk kinds of things that can be uh, affordable. There's many of those that are short videos, free opportunities. So being able to think about what works. If you've got crews that are out in the field, some of those are not necessarily going to be applicable. But if we can get short micro learnings that can be on their phones that they can do out in the field in 15 minutes or less, 5 minutes, right? Things that are different ways of distributing, different channels. All of that might make some good sense for people, or asking them how would they like it, right? As long as there's an element of intentionality behind it. What's the why behind your even doing it? Yes, there can be compliance. Yes, there's safety. And we're trying to develop our people, right? Um, so we've got classroom, webinars, virtual, right? Individual locations, and sometimes doing things in groups, sometimes individuals, depending on what they need, when they entered the organization, all of that kind of fun stuff. So I think sometimes what happens, not think, I know, I've got clients that are very reactionary. Something happened. Now we need training. Well, what's the goals? What are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish? And I often ask, what are you going to do after I'm gone? What do you mean? Well, it can't just be that I was here for 2 hours or for 4 hours. What are you doing after I leave? More often than not, there's no answers to the question. Well, then it's not going to be sticky. It's not going to stick around. So when we think again back to leadership capabilities, what you're teaching people, what you want, the initiatives that you have, transformation depends on your leaders, right? You guys talked about change, culture. Skills don't scale without leadership. Things don't happen without people in place. Are they equipped? Do people trust them? What are we doing to instill and build trust? Do they understand big picture, where the organization's going? So when we think about those kinds of things, what leadership skills are becoming most important in your workplace? Are those things that are being talked about, reinforced in some fashion? If there are things that you are doing or you have initiatives around, how are we reinforcing them and talking them and keeping them current all the time so that there can be no mistake about where we're going or what we're doing or what we're about? The thing that I love about this is that it kind of reframes the concern. It's not that people can't learn, it's that learning only happens when people feel supported and trusted, and it's clear what people expect of them. So this really becomes a leadership discussion or focus. So are there things that are leadership skills that you guys are focused on or maybe looking towards in 2026?
Yeah, if I could just get my team to communicate with each other, that would be great.
I hear that. I hear that.
Just get up and walk 20 feet to the next office and ask.
Right. And that's what we were talking about where I am today is based on curiosity. Ask questions, not assumptions, not judgment, making sure departments know what's going on with each other, to help each other, to support each other, right? So absolutely. Looking at the chat box, how to deal with harassment concerns, maybe potentially discrimination, communication, performance follow-ups, all of those things from a leadership standpoint. And in some respects, to partner with HR. These aren't just HR concerns, right? These aren't things that should just go to HR. These are things that a good portion of our managers and supervisors should, could be handling and doing. We've got to get them there. They need to see that it is their job in a lot of respects. And you're right, Jackie, not managing through emails and texts. That's not managing. And have we set the expectation for what it means to be a manager inside our organization, right? And I could go down a rabbit hole with you guys on all of that, but that probably wouldn't be a good idea, I don't think. So, now this comes from SHRM, and I debated, and we could probably talk a lot here, and I want to be thoughtful. I really want to be thoughtful. Organizations will move from a one-size-fits-all talent model to project-based, outcome-driven structures, creating workplace policies tailored to employee function and needs. So I think this the things we always used to do. When I think about HR becoming more strategic and things are going to become more complex, policies will become more nuanced and differentiated. This is less about the 9 to 5. Everybody has the same rules, same structure. To now, we've got employees working in multiple states. We've got multiple locations. We've got different structures. Do we need to have different rules, flexibility, and support? We've got intentionality around the fact that we need to flex and adapt. We need to customize our benefits. We need to customize things to meet the employees and where they're at and what does that look like. This seems like a shift from uniformity to something different. At least that's how I interpreted what they're saying. And so that fairness is maybe being redefined and that it's less about everybody having the same experience and more about everyone having what they need to succeed in their role. And I think that's going to be a big shift, and HR is smack dab in the middle of it. I don't know whether or not you've seen this. This is part of SHRM's predictions for 2026, and this is part of something you can download if you're a SHRM member. Um, and so the next slide goes in tandem with that, what I think it might mean, kind of the real implications. But I'd love to hear from you what you think that might mean, and because I think this impacts our culture as an organization as well. So thoughts, observations?
So sometimes I always feel sometimes like they're always right. And we're always trying to scramble around to make them happy, not getting in trouble. It's always got to be me that fixes, they're never the ones that are wrong. They're the ones that are disrespectful. So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. And what is that going to look like, or what is that going to mean, and how do I? Okay. Well, and if we saw our jobs maybe differently, like we're contractors, we're designers of a system. I mean, sometimes, and maybe this is maybe too much of minutia. Oftentimes I've gone into organizations and I hear from supervisors and managers, like our performance review form doesn't really work for us. It doesn't work for my department because the questions aren't relevant. And HR has worked really hard to put something together for everybody, for the whole organization. But the thing is that it doesn't really work for our manufacturing, our warehouse floor. It doesn't work for our sales team in terms of all the categories. I think this is kind of like that in the respects of now we want a performance review form that meets everybody's needs. And then we've got this bit of a monster. We tried to streamline it, but it's really not going where we need it to. The employees don't have a meaningful conversation. Managers and supervisors might think it takes too much time and they're not really having a meaningful conversation and they're just checking boxes. And yet we worked our tails off to try and create something that would work for everybody. What does that look like? We're known traditionally. So to the note in the chat box, we're known traditionally for having a 5-day work week, right? That's been what it's always been. Only we have organizations that have 7 days a week. Well, there's been a big push for, do we have to be 5? Couldn't we get to 4? Especially if we have all this technology that makes us more efficient. Well, what would it look like? Can everybody go to 4? Well, not if we've got our manufacturing floor that has to operate all the time. Jackie, you have your hand up.
Sorry. I've kind of always taken a person-centered approach to HR, but that's just me and the industry I work in. So for me, we have like systems and they are consistent, but also I take into consideration each person and their history, their longevity, their all the things when it comes to what it means to them, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I believe it is consistent in that way. So somebody who's been here 10 years and has done the same things are going to get treated the same way as somebody else, which is hard to do with as many employees as we have to remember that. But that's why I have Lisa, because she does remember that. But yeah, I mean, so for me, that's what we have tried to do for many, many, many years. That balance of customization and consistency, and we just call it person-centered. So yes, and it drives some people very crazy because there are no black and white answers. There's very few. And that is the world we live in. It is true. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that when we try and make things so black and white or so structured, then that leaves us without some talent that we could have had, right? And one of the things in an upcoming slide is that, you know, our recruiting processes are kind of broken. And we moved to algorithms and we used AI, and the answer is it's kicking out some wonderful people. So how do we blend and use things to fix that so that we aren't losing good people? Now we also have jobs that perhaps don't necessarily pay the kind of money that people need. So people are working multiple jobs. Well, is that okay for you? Is that work for your organization? Or does that not? What are the consequences of having employees working multiple jobs, having a side gig? What happens when the side gig is getting them more money than their regular full-time job, right? So they're collecting 2 paychecks now. Okay, well, that helps their financial wellness for a period of time, for a long period of time. Do we have policies around this, right? What would drive you to create this policy? If you don't have one, is it time for a pause to think about it? Is moonlighting a thing, or is that an outdated terminology? Right? So being able to think about that, because this is a lot of employees' realities. Think about the government employees who were on hold for over 5 weeks. All kinds of things going on. So I just ask you to kind of think about it, right? So I mentioned recruitment was broken. Well, I don't know that there's any one single fix, but if we're using all automated tools, we've taken out the human component of looking at people. Well, I don't know that that's the answer. Yes, it can be overwhelming depending on how many people that you've gotten. So I think sometimes the pendulum swings, right? And in my world, since I've been around the block just once or twice, what's old is new again. And people go, oh, and it's like, well, it was a thing. It just you didn't know about it. Or we've got to find happy mediums. We've got to find a better approach. We're in human resources, and we can never forget the human component. And I will share this following quick little scenario. My son was looking for a job for nearly a year. Every place he applied, every place he applied, during that entire period, didn't matter whether it was an interview in person or online or on the phone, not a single one of the entities, some very well-known companies, never, ever got back to him. Email, text, letter, postcard, zero, nada. Not interested, moving on. Thank you, no thank you. Left him hanging. Not a single human component in any of that. And as an HR professional, I was screaming literally and figuratively. I was so disappointed in the profession, in recruiters, whether internal or external. That's not the way to treat people. So when we think about all these things that an organization is doing or how we're doing it, what you're thinking about initiatives for 2026, your budget that you have planned, remembering who we're servicing, remembering who you are and that you need to take care of yourself because some of the 2026 trends also include our benefits. Now, just in the pure essence of time, I'm more than happy to have you chat and ask questions about any of these things. But this definitely has some data in this section. And I don't know how hardcore benefits oriented any of you are. But I think that HR is being asked simultaneously to improve the employee human experience while we're competing for talent, controlling our costs in one fashion or another, whether it's unsustainable cost growth, right? The tension is becoming very defining in our roles. With that said, employers are recently enhancing their benefits plans. They're not cutting them. Back to customizing, back to understanding what employees need, back to retention. Now, popular benefits now, at least according to the research, include these things. Retirement is number one. Comprehensive health, mental health, expanded drug coverage, flexible remote work. And some of this I also believe employees are pushing for. They're not just asking, sometimes they're actually demanding it. I mean, during the pandemic, people moved and they moved without us knowing it. That wasn't an ask, right? But healthcare costs, probably for many of you, you got your notices, they went up. Pharmacy spending, a lot of things are being driven by this. So, where are your tensions? Is this a part of your attracting talent? Are you focusing on this? How are you communicating? Cost sharing, probably increasing. At least the data would suggest that 50% of employers plan are expanding the GLP-1 coverage activities, but that our cost sharing is increasing, that we are going to be sharing more and more of that. So the translation between finance and employees, the change manager, the piece of this in terms of explaining why do they understand that shift, because that's hitting their pocketbook, right? And 48% anticipate a increase in that cost sharing. How transparent are you in the communication of this? What are the trade-offs? What's happening with some of that? Utilization. Number one challenge in benefit isn't access, it's actually understanding. Benefits fairs, one-on-one conversations, benefits person working with employee groups by departments. How are you communicating? What are your channels? I would love for you to put in the chat box. How are you communicating things? Because we know the data is out there. You got too long of an email, people stop reading it. Too much information, overwhelmed. My personal bias, many of us are sharing benefits information when we're onboarding employees and they don't even get it for 90 days. Now, some of you get it right away. Some of you, it's in 30 days. Absolutely, we should be sharing it right away. But if an employee doesn't get it for 90 days, why are you spending so much time during onboarding going over something? Chances are good they won't even remember that information. Give them the short snapshot, then set up a separate meeting to go over it when they're still there. What if they haven't even lasted the 90 days? I'm just saying. So maybe it's more benefits administrator to experienced designer, educator. Maybe you're a behavioral change agent, partner. You're something else. So digital platforms, in-person meetings, virtual meetings. Do you still have physical materials? What's the most confusing part of benefits in your world? And then I think the last one on benefits, burnout, using telehealth, EAPs, flexibility, financial concerns causes burnout and stress for people. These aren't nice to have options. These really are kind of gotta have because they impact productivity, retention. It's a different kind of risk management issue, but I think we could keep another new category of risk. So, when it comes to the benefits, observations, thoughts, concerns, what are you doing that's working? Some of your faces. Like, Deborah, what? And again, you'll get a copy of the slides. You can go back and look at the data. You can have it. Because even our friend AI is entering benefits, right? I don't know if you're using AI to help you in terms of like analyzing some of the data around usage or outcomes, trying to explore like what you're currently doing or um, how you could communicate better. So benefits info prior to open enrollment, always good. As managers, not sure what level I need to be responsible for what to mentor on and how to utilize benefit information. Sometimes asking like our peers, how are you doing it? What's working for you? Um, I think sometimes managers, and now this is just my opinion, okay? I think sometimes they don't even understand the benefits or understand where the benefit information is, where it's housed. If you've got brochures, is it up? Is it out? Is it in the lunchroom? Is it someplace else? Sometimes people have like little resource libraries for all kinds of organizational stuff. So where is it that that information is? If they don't even know what their benefits are in general, where's that summary cheat sheet that you give out during onboarding? Managers should have that, right? Easy access, fingertips, so that they can reference it. Because if they don't know it, then they can't answer questions even at an introductory level, a surface level for the first go around, right? So I'm always I want to be thoughtful about what I'm going to say here. I don't want to assume that people know stuff. I want to ensure that they know stuff, which means ad nauseum reminding them. But find different ways of doing that. Ask AI. I need to reinforce this message every month, and I need to do it a different way. Give me ideas. Um, but if you've got an EAP, an employee assistance plan, that's a great resource. Oftentimes they do programming for free. They'll do like brown bag lunches. They've got emails that go out, partnering with them, truly asking them to assist you in some fashion. Right? And someone says, making me realize I haven't seen a utilization report. Absolutely. Sharing that data back. People won't know who's utilizing, but in what capacities, right? They can come do financial assistance. They've got people resources, but are people using it for legal support, for childcare support and information or resources? There's so many ways that they can help augment you. Your managers and supervisors don't need to know those resources, quote unquote, all of those things. They just need to know EAP has those. Let's keep reminding this is an extension of them. They don't need to know. And in some cases, we don't want them to get so connected to an employee on legal issues, marital issues. That's, in my mind, crossing a boundary line. Because if the employee sees them as that resource, they're going to start seeing them as that resource for all kinds of things. We want to kind of keep that firewall so that the boundary is about them being an expert on the work, on the job. EAP is a resource for all kinds of other things. Go to HR for support in other things. Let me make sure I'm on the expert on the job. Because if I'm starting to give out marital advice or financial advice or legal advice, sure, I've had those challenges, but now you see me as kind of the wrong resource. And
So
those
different,
lines.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know how to raise my hand in Zoom. Sorry, I was
Oh,
looking.
I'm so sorry about that, Lisa.
That's okay. I was waiting until you were done. This is kind of like an example I just had happen. It's kind of unofficial benefit. I just received a phone call where, I had to take from one of our supervisors that a staff was calling out and stated that they have a friend who's suicidal and they wanted to stay with them. So on a person-centered aspect, even though we might have concerns, it's like, let's take it, and be okay with them, but moving forward, just letting them know, because if we force them to come to work, and then something were to happen. So it's kind of the unofficial understanding
Yeah,
of that.
it's a very delicate issue, right? And that's also, we get caught up in the emotion of something, totally understandable. This is where, everything comes in through the emotion of our brain first, and we need it to travel all the way to the logical portion of our brain, which is absolutely, I want you to stay with them. And I also want you to think about you have resources that support you. Let's get those to you immediately in some fashion or another. Does this friend work for us? Does this friend work someplace else? They have resources. There's also a hotline for suicide. There's also these kinds of things. We need to get, how can we support you, support them? I mean, all kinds of things and a great scenario for if this were to happen in the future, how would we like our managers and supervisors to address this going forward, right? And sometimes we don't think about, oh, let's use this as a future manager supervisor meeting agenda item.
It's the first immediate thought with myself and with the supervisor, because of the person, we immediately went to, is this an excuse? Is this a true thing? Do we believe them? So you've
Right.
got to switch that part of your brain off as well.
Right,
So,
right. Which, depending on the individual, could be completely understandable and
Yeah.
natural, and yet absolutely, do we go with grace, the benefit of the doubt? Do we go with trust? And
Mhm.
then checking in
Yeah.
afterwards. Can I check in with you in a couple hours? I'd like you to send me a text and let me know how progress is being made so that there's an accountability factor. that can be there, right? So there's some things that we can do to help support that other side of the equation as well. So great question, Lisa. All right. So as we wrap up our time, for those of you who are still with me, because I know we're right up against our time frame, my question to you kind of is, anything there resonate with you? Is there something for you to start working on or start thinking about? Something here for you to share with others? Again, from just the conversation. And again, I'll share the PowerPoint with those of you who joined me online, live and in person. And quick note, there were the resources. And just a note, the very first one is actually an upcoming webinar that's going to talk about trends for the future. So if you want to participate, you could click on that link live now and go to it to see if it's something you would be interested in. The next two items were additional articles and information. Did not reference those in the material, but might be something you have an interest in. So you can feel free to check those out. And then the others were things that were referenced via the material in some fashion or another. So that's there for you. And then those, just in case you wanted to kind of go there. Again, I referenced this very quickly, just for fun. These are the things that Pinterest is saying is going to happen in 2026. I'm just saying, again, for fun. So, I do not have a list for you for next month in terms of what we're going to be doing, because honestly, I'll be honest, transparent, I don't know. But that means it'll be a surprise for both of us, or all of us, as the case may be. So I really want to say thank you for being here for this one. I want to say thank you for your participation. Also, feel free to hang out if you'd like to chat for a little bit after class. I'm not doing anything except some client work afterwards in terms of office related work. So happy to chit chat with a couple of you afterwards if you'd like. Otherwise, I'm super glad that you were here and part of this one. Again, this has been HR Lunch Bunch. I'm Deborah Jeffries from HR Answers. I'm glad you were part of this one. I really do appreciate you being here. Look forward to seeing you again in the future. And we'll call that an official ending to this recording and this segment. Take care, everybody.